Okay, metal detection has been done on that hill, and I've interviewed the guy who did the metal detection. He's called Alan Hassel, and he explained to me exactly how he did it, and he's told me, honest guy, that there's a 4 foot by 2 foot non-ferrous object so many feet below the surface. And there are sumps on the side of that hill that Alan has identified, which are to drain and keep the central chamber dry. And I've had negotiations with the farmers to try and get back on that land, have further testing done, and they just will not cooperate, which is another story. So why could this research be dangerous? Now, the King Arthur research in particular, I'm just going to let Alan explain some of that.
Well, Iestyn ap Gwragedd dies, was deposed in 1091. He allegedly had 14 sons and several daughters. The Welsh gentry, then sons of the lesser ones, all, as in England, kept their pedigrees and their genealogies. And I don't think the British public is generally aware of the huge mass of manuscript evidence that's available in this way. So there are many people around today who can, and some of them do, claim their descent from Iestyn. Actually, the last king was a descendant of his. Morgan was killed in 1300 AD.
Which goes back to Arthur II.
And they all go back to Arthur II, who
Right.
dies in 579.
Right.
Arthur II is son of King Moerig or Maurice. He is a 6th generation direct descendant of Arthur I, who is Arthur who invaded Europe. His father is a son of Magnus Maximus by Magnus's first wife, Cynric, not his second wife. And he is the only son of Crispus Nobilis Flavius Caesar. Well, Crispus is the eldest son of Constantine the Great. He's the son of Helen, big British princess, and the Emperor Constantine Chlorus. Helen is direct descendant of the Holy Family.
Right.
So it starts to wobble about all over the place. Now, obviously, the Queen of England having 2 parents, 4 grandparents, and then 18, has got about a putative 500,000 descendants, ancestors, sorry. So it's quite possible she could trace back into these lines anyway. But obviously, she's not, in the sense of Britishness, she's not the senior person.
So it undermines
it could undermine.
Who is the actual,
it could undermine it, yeah.
True monarch.
In the sense of descent from Brutus and the British kings, yes.
Because Alan and Baram have had a litany of attempts to derail their efforts. And this, again, this is just the tip of an iceberg, what I'm going to list on the screen. Okay? Some of it is in the DVDs that I've made. There's 3 programs, 3-hour-long programs, which go into the smear attempts and the murder attempts against Alan Wilson and Baram Blackett. And I'm going to list some of them. They were framed for stealing jewellery in the 1980s. That went to trial, and they got bad media press. And this was at the time when they were writing the King Arthur books. There was a smear campaign instigated by historian Geoffrey Ashe. There was a smear campaign, letters written to all media organisations claiming that Alan was a criminal, which wasn't true. This is by someone called Ian McGregor, who was a straw man. Their bookshops were visited by MI5, and they were told that they weren't allowed to stock them, or they were told to take them off the shelves. Alan's house, when they were living in Cardiff, was raided by the police. They said they were looking for a casket. They tried to sue the police over this, and the trial was cancelled 6 times. They got bad media publicity for this. The church that he mentioned that they bought, somebody vandalized that church and started digging up bodies and stuff, and it was reported in the media that it was Alan and Baram that had done this, so they got the news articles saying that they were grave robbers. This all went in the press. It wasn't true. They've exposed corruption in the Welsh Arts Council and in an archaeological funding organisation, which tells you why they're not getting the funding, because these groups were corrupt. They were framed for stealing paintings from a church. That went to trial. Alan Wilson nearly ended up in prison over it, and it was completely fabricated. They were framed. Baram was framed for a serious assault, which also went to trial. and on CCTV camera, he wasn't the person who perpetrated the assault. They were driving along the motorway where they were going to one of these trials. A van pulled up in front of them, the doors opened, and a jackhammer, that's one of these big pneumatic hammers that's used to dig the road, was thrown out in the front of their car when they were on the motorway travelling at high speed. The jackhammer went straight into the car. They could have easily died in that incident. They had an attack on a property that they were staying in Malaga, that they believed that was possibly a murder attempt. They've also been poisoned. Okay. Now, one of the less sinister things that's happened to them is that they had some brochures stolen, and I'm going to let Alan explain what happened to them in the 1980s when they were trying to promote the King Arthur, because what they did, they started a business trying to get bus trips and bus tours to come and see the grave of King Arthur, and they were trying to promote that and sell it to the travel industry.
You're wanting to promote this work and the history and get people visiting.
That's right.
So you've got to go to the biggest exhibition in the UK, in London.
Clayton's coaches will take them round,
Right.
and we'll take them round in the coaches. We started coach trips going on.
Right.
He applied for a grant, which is available to anybody in Wales for brochures, funding for brochures, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was told, yes, you can have the funding, but on no account must you mention the name King Arthur, and on no account must you mention the name of Wilson or Blackett. You delivered your brochures to the tourist board in Cardiff. Everybody did that.
Right.
They had a big stand, and there were tables, 4 chairs, and racks for literature. Well, companies hire then that table, or maybe 2 tables, and the chairs as their little company patch on the tourist board big stand, you see. They have a little dummy, well, they had a little dummy Welsh cottage in the middle, and about 20 of these areas with tables. Well, we hired or rented 1 table with 4 chairs and some stands on this.
So you're trying to sell these tours to travel companies and maybe American market, that kind of thing.
So we get along, we stayed in Bayswater for the night. We were up there early, 8:30, 9 o'clock, we're at the place. Of course, the tourist board don't bother to arrive till 9 o'clock. They get there, the exhibition's opening at 10. There's frantic activity everywhere. I don't know if you've ever seen an exhibition before.
Oh, yes.
And all the bunting and bits of wood have been tossed around.
Yeah.
Oh, right alongside were skips. 9 o'clock they opened the door, everybody went in, got their literature out, except ours wasn't there. Now it had been loaded on the truck in Cardiff and sent on the night before, and so had everybody else's. They all got theirs, but ours was missing, not there. So this is a bit like, phone calls from Clayton back to Cardiff. Where is this stuff? Nobody knew. Well, it's on the manifest. It was sent to it. Should be in Olympia.
This is cardboard boxes full of brochures.
Big, heavy boxes, 4 large boxes full of brochures.
And we've got one of the brochures there.
So I'm looking on, I could see this skip alongside, and these trucks are coming away, taking the skips of rubbish away, ready for the opening. And this is pretty full. So I walked over to it, and I could see, I was looking over my shoulder, I'm a bit streetwise, and I started throwing things out of the skip to see what happened. And there were faces glued to the windows of their little Welsh cottage office, I'm on here. I got into the skip and I'm throwing the rubbish out. I'm a nice new suit on, I got a brand new shirt and tie, I'm dressed to the nines, I'm inside the skip throwing the rubbish out. And of course, the workman came up, what the are you doing? People are gathering round, lunatics. And there, in the bottom of the skip, were 4 large, well-wrapped bundles of brochures. They'd escaped out of the tourist office at night and hidden themselves in the skip, and they were trying to escape from Olympia. So I called my colleagues over and we got these out, took them over to the stand.
The bastards.
The bastards, you got it right. So now, out of the tourist board office comes this large man with a big black beard, and he comes over to Clayton Jones as if I'm not there, my colleague. He said, you get these 2 off this stand. No, I'll give you 2 minutes to get them off or I'll throw them off. So I hang about. We've rented that space. We're directors of the company that's rented it. Pardon me, it's ours. So he turns to stride back to the office. So I went after him. I said, hey, you, come here, you. I said, you want to throw me off? You try it right now. Of course, I'm younger then. I'm going to pop him, you see. And he ran and shut himself in the office. He wouldn't come out.
Right.
So with that peace reigned then, we just got our brochures in the racks and carried on.
around about the turn of the millennium, I think it was, Allen and Baram relocated in Newcastle. They live in Benwell. And in 2008, there's a block of flats which overlooks their property. And in 2008, 3 people moved into that block of flats independently, who were all coincidentally from London. And they know that one of them is associated with the other one because the wife of one of them moved in with the other one, and then he came and lived there 4 months later, and then she moved out of that flat and into the other flat. So they know that there's an association between at least 2 of them. And they also know that one of them has claimed that he has been inside for, I think it's 6 years. Okay, and they suspect, although they don't know, that the other 2 might also have criminal records. Now, shortly after this, Allen and Baram have got a secured property. It's got its own grounds, and they've got 2 guard dogs. They've got a Rottweiler and a Belgian Shepherd. Now, I've been round to their house dozens of times, and I've never heard the dogs bark. They're guard dogs. They bark if there's a problem. And apparently, these neighbours were flashing strobe lights at the dogs, throwing food, trying to get the dogs to bark, and then they would complain to the local authority and the police. So it was as if they were trying to get rid of the dogs, and that actually went to court, and Allen was fined for that. But Allen and Baram believe that these 3 people have been sent by someone specifically to intimidate them. And when you add all of the other stuff into the equation, if you were to come out with that claim, most people would say, "No, don't be ridiculous." But when you add all of the other stuff in that's happened to them, it's not. It doesn't seem unlikely to me. Now, on the 14th of August 2011, just over a year ago, 3:15 in the morning, Saturday evening or Sunday morning, Baram is in bed in his bedroom. Alan's in bed in his bedroom, and suddenly Blackett was woken up by a noise underneath his bed, and very, very quickly his bedroom became an inferno. He managed to stumble out, and Alan woke up in the other bedroom, went out onto the hallway, and managed to pull Baram out of the bedroom. But ambulance came, and Baram nearly died. He was in a coma for 10, 11 days. And he was given a 25% chance of living by the doctors. Okay? Now, this is photographs of the fire after the fire brigade had put it out. So the fire brigade put it out, and then they left. Okay? As I say, Baram was in hospital. He was visited by a priest, and the word was that he was probably going to die. Now, again, more photographs of the fire. And he had tubes. I just took this photograph the other day. He had tubes put down his throat to clear all of the smoke out of his lungs. Now, after he came out of hospital and they started tidying up the mess from the room, they realised there was the rafter underneath the floorboards had this curious chunk, semicircular chunk missing out of it. And Baram actually he claims that he has in the past seen an incendiary device operate, and he's convinced that somebody put an incendiary device under his bed and triggered it deliberately at 3:15 in the morning to start that fire. Because he doesn't smoke, there was no candles on, it was the middle of summer, so there was no heating on. And the electrics all worked after the fire, so it was not an electrical fault that's removed a huge chunk from this floorboard. That's it there. Okay. Now, when the fire brigade had put the fire out, the area there where this debris is, the fire brigade didn't see that damage because it was covered with debris at the time. The fire brigade haven't been back in the house since they put the fire out. Again, that's it there. Now, we'll just let Baram explain a little bit about what happened.
So it clearly looks as though something has either exploded or, there's an impact where that beam has been damaged. It's not just fire damage. You can see that it's possibly
it is
something.
combustion, a bomb. It started with the explosion, and then it was followed by the fast and furious inferno of fire, and that's exactly what an incendiary device does. I've seen an incendiary device in the 1990s by an MI5 operative who actually rented accommodation from us and an office.
Yeah. So an incendiary device will extremely quickly turn a room into, as you describe it, an inferno.
That's what
they're
is what
intended to
happened.
do.
And he's the head of the Northumbria, one of the heads of the main fire investigation department. He said it wasn't smoking, we've got no answer to that. He says, our job is to stop fires and save lives. It's a prerogative of the police if it's been suspected foul play. And that was the end of it. We've had electricians here, I've had architects here, I've had engineers here, and they all say the same thing.
I mean, this is serious stuff, Baram. This is an attempted murder, if you're right.
It's attempted arson, murder, and conspiracy to murder.
Right.
Where the incendiary device was placed, you see this coming down here?
Yeah.
You can see the combustion.
Yeah. So there's part of that
What
floorboard.
I've kept is, I've kept the two key floorboards.
Yeah.
I'll get them out now, which were originally here.
Okay, now, Alan and Baram at that time had a young man who was lodging with them. He was living in a spare bedroom. And they think that he may be involved, that he's either been duped or been paid, possibly, to put something under the bed, which he may... They claim that he was told that it was a recording device. So someone's duped him possibly to put that there. But he was the only person who had keys to the house. He's the only person who could have got past the dogs. Okay, now, I'm just going to show you this video of a thermite flare because an explosives expert looked at that damage when he saw my TV show and he said he thought it might be a thermite flare. This is a thermite flare going off. That's a thermite flare on top of a scanner, a computer scanner. So in seconds, it can turn anything into an inferno using thermite. So we're not saying it's thermite, we don't know, but we're saying that it's been started possibly maliciously because of the fact that the damage is centered in one particular place. Now, the fire occurred on the 14th of August 2011. They became aware that it might have been started maliciously round about the beginning of September. So Alan wrote to the police a big long letter explaining everything, explaining the damage and the fact that he thought it was a plot to murder. The police did nothing. They didn't even come into the house to look at the damage. Alan contacted me on the 17th of October and because the police hadn't come to the house, the fire brigade hadn't come back to the house, they did come to the gate and they spoke to, I think, one of them over the gate, but they didn't come in the house.